Jim is a Chicago-based photographer, motorcycle revisionist, and traveler, former co-founder the Team Moto Build events, whose mission was teaching motorcycle building to those who've never held a wrench. And you know, it's pretty powerful when you get your hand on that wrench and you're like, look what I got to do. So powerful stuff for the vision that he's been following in his life. Let's see how he's getting himself geared up. Please welcome back to the stage, Jim Linning.
Hey. So it is the burden of all true gentlemen to lead an exciting life. It is the burden of all true gentlemen and ladies to lead an exciting life. And we should all be telling a story about the lives that we lead. And by doing that, we have the resources to inspire and change the hearts and minds by leading through examples. I play with motorcycles, and I built a smile factory out of a XR 650 Honda with the sole purpose of going on adventures. My name is Jim Linning. I'm a Chicago photographer, as Susan said, and I've been riding motorcycles since I was 5. I've been taking pictures since I was 12, and I'm probably building motorcycles for like 15 years or so. I'm not a builder, I'm not a mechanic. I've just sort of been doing this. Motorcycles have always been kind of part of my DNA for whatever reason. They've been vehicles, they've been art pieces. The bikes I've built have been kind of an expression of my art. I've been able to take something and create a 3D form as opposed to the 2D forms that my work normally is on a page or a screen. There's nothing like flipping your leg over something you built out of atoms and then ride around and then pass on to somebody else. I don't keep the bikes I build, I try to push them out into the world. So in 2019, I had a whole string of really amazing projects in the first part of the year, and it allowed me to travel around a lot. I got to Iceland, I got to Republic of Georgia, I was in Mexico a couple of times, climbing mountains and going into like the forests and whatnot. In Georgia, we were in remote mountain towns along the Russian border. I started to gravitate toward wanting to do more remote adventures. Mountain climbing, hiking, things that took me out into nature more so than exploring cities, which I had done extensively. And to do that, my favorite mode of transportation is 2 wheels because that allowed you to get almost anywhere. In 2019, my garage consisted of 2 or 3 cafe racers I had built, a Ducati, and 2 Spanish trials bikes. And I wanted to get rid of a couple of those and buy a dual sport, because I never owned a street legal dirt bike. And being kind of a Honda fan, I figured the XR 650 would be the perfect bike. So a little bit of poking around, I found one on Craigslist, 2001, beautiful mint, 100% stock, 2,000 miles. The guy wanted like $2,000 for it, so it was like a trifecta. Couple of rides in around Wicker Park, took it back to my folks, which is in Northwest Illinois, some gravel road riding. I realized that it was, in fact, the worst thing I've ever ridden in my entire life. I fucking hated it. Absolutely awful. Not only was the seat like a piece of barnwood, the tank was a pipette and had about the same range. The handlebars were in my lap. The performance was so anemic. It sounded stupid. It was dated in its looks. It was completely awful. So I shoved it in the garage and plotted how I'm gonna make a lot of money off of it and flip it. And then the world ended. So then came the pandemic. And between crushing some Thomas Keller master classes and making gnocchi, which I fucking nailed. I was looking at, online, just going through and trying to figure out like a next adventure. And I was starting to hoard all these GPS files from ADV and BDR websites, and just like scheming, like where could I go? And this Wisconsin Adventure Trail, like Trans-Wisconsin Adventure Trail thing kept coming up. I'm like, that's an easy thing to pick off because it's right there. It starts in Galena, ends in like Superior. I'm like, I can do that. That'd be kind of fun. It's like a 635-mile route. And I kind of had a bike that could do it, but it needed a little bit of work. So my brain, which is all about producing and like making things, started to go into overdrive as to what I needed to do to make this bike something that would carry the Sasquatchian form across horrible terrain for 4 days. And I got into the research of it, like on forums. I was looking everywhere online. I was calling people up who knew the bikes, builders and engine people, and what could I do to make it work better, go faster, ride smoother, and be more comfortable, and have a cockpit that was going to fit me. And with that research, I started buying parts. And thank God for like, COVID money. I was just like, buy all the stuff, select all, buy. And it all shows up at my shop, and I started putting the thing together. And my initial thought was to just build a bike that was going to be functional. And the more I got into it, and by the time I had it completely tore apart, I realized I now had two Home Depot bins of bike, about 50 little baggies with like vaguely marked up like what was in there. And I've seen this movie before. I did this when I first started building bikes. I had a GT 750 Suzuki, tore the thing completely apart, had no clue what I was doing. And it sat like that for 15 years until I gave it to somebody else, and it became somebody else's 2 bins and 50 bags for about what I paid for it back then. Wasn't going to do that this time. I pulled everything together and started researching and buying tools and really getting into the nitty-gritty of it. And the thing that was the biggest issue for me with that bike was the suspension. It rode like those springy, like little ponies in the playground. They just go back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, I'm large. The suspension was just like a teeter-totter, and I hated it. So Race Tech, and I'm pretty sure that I'm on a do not answer list with those guys, walked me through revalving the front and rear, respringing everything. I was even mixing different oil weights together to get the perfect rebound and compression on my forks. I went into full nerd with this bike. Put it all together, painted the frame. I was buying Dodge Viper Red, which is a $90 a pint paint for the frame. Bought everything that made it look not like an XR650. Bigger tank, a great seat, had the handlebars up and forward, bigger pegs, everything. Titanium exhaust. By the time I was done with it, I had a 2-wheel trophy truck. The thing was amazing. Super loud, super fast, could go over any kind of terrain without the tires ever leaving the ground, which was a mind blower for me. All the bikes I'd built in the past were kind of the cafe racer style, which you have a very limited options for suspension. Like a 1972 Honda CB350, you got maybe some different rear shocks with the front end's like, kind of what it is. But with this, the revalving and the respringing and the oils and all this stuff made this bike handle like these would never normally come off the street from. So that was great. I now had the bike. And the route is 635 miles from Galena to Lake Superior, which is a couple of days, like a 3-day camping in between route. I did not want to ride this thing back to Chicago. So as I'm putting all this together and sitting there staring at Garmin's Basecamp software, I'm realizing that there's some pretty cool roads that parallel this route. Like you're only like 5 miles away. I'm like, This is a bike that I built, which, you know, I'm not a mechanic, period. I've built some bikes and they all run, but I am not a certified wrench twister. And I wanted to have some sort of insurance policy if the thing did explode, which it could have, and have somebody coming along, you know, within like 5 miles, I could, like, you know, pull the ripcord out. So I called a friend of mine and pitched it this way. Hey, I've got my big creepy van. I'm gonna do this trip across Wisconsin. I want you to drive the van. I've got this great route through small, cool towns that have antique shops and like great scenery. We'll meet at different campgrounds that have amazing scenery of themselves. And we'll do this and we'll wind up at Porcupine Mountain at the end. Mind-blowing scenery there. What do you think? I'll pay for everything. About 10 questions later, they were in. So I had my chase vehicle, and we went out and we did that whole route, and it was absolutely amazing. 2 days of hard riding, an easier third day, camping in between. Got up to Lake Superior. I met them in Porcupine Mountain area, which is absolutely stunning in the fall, if you've ever done that. Loaded up the bike and then drove back to Chicago. And it was one of the best trips I've ever had. We each had an amazing experience. Being able to bring somebody along and give them a route that they could really enjoy and have their own like empowering experience, as well as me kind of having a dream that I've been trying to do for like the last like 4 or 5 months, all come together was really quite fun. So, and then the route coming back was, you know, a beautiful drive there too. I've been able to replicate that same thing a couple more times out in Colorado with that same bike, and it's been a really amazing vehicle. So, live the dream, bring people along. And that's it.
Jim, I just want to know, since you started this adventure, you know, getting your friend introduced to this idea through the idea of a creepy van, I'm wondering what candy you offered them to tempt them into the van.
Everything from Buc-ees.
Everything from Buc-ees.
Bucky Bites.
He is representing Buc-ees.
Turkey. Snacks.
So you went like 400 miles south, loaded up with Buc-ees, came back north and said, yo friend, I got this idea.
What?
Exactly.
Do you still have the bike?
I do.
Yes!
But it's for sale.
Oh, no.
All bikes are for sale all the time.
He's not wrong. So hopefully there's many more adventures for this bike to have out there, and hopefully get you to tell those adventures up here. Fair enough? Thank you, Jim. That was wonderful. I too am looking forward to taking some adventures on the twat.
Nah, I didn't want to say that.
Oh, please. We are not shy up here.